Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the class. In the previous class, we were discussing about the federal provisions which have been adopted in our constitution. Though in our constitution, federalism word has not used. We have seen that in Article 1, Clause 1, it is written that India shall be a union of states. So, this term was used deliberately in order to make the country strong, in order to stop the any kind of process of disintegration in order to make the country integrated and unified. This term was used by our constitution makers, but in our constitution, the federal provisions are there. We can see that there is two levels of government is there mentioned in the constitution, and there is division of power between these two levels of government, and we have discussed all the three lists which is given in the constitution. These are union list, state list, and concurrent list. And we have seen that the subjects which are under the union list, the parliament has the power to make laws on those subjects, and the subjects which are under the state list, the state legislature has the power to make laws on those subjects. And in concurrent list, the subjects which are under concurrent list, both the government has the power, has the authority to make laws on these subjects. But if any conflict arise between the laws made by the parliament and the laws made by the legislature, state legislature, then the law made by the parliament will prevail. So, in this way, we can see that the center has given more power. And one more thing is there, that provision of residuary power. Residuary powers are those powers I have discussed earlier also, and yesterday's class also I have discussed this, that residuary powers are those powers which are not mentioned in any of the list. And why they are not mentioned in any of the list? Because there are many according to changed times, according to changed circumstances, new subjects arise. And our constitution has given all these new subjects. Our constitution has given the authority to make laws on all these new subjects to union government. For example, cyber laws are there. Uh, at the time of constitution making, there was no internet and any kind of cyber was there. But with the passage of time, this new subject arose, and there is need to make laws on this subject. And this is this residuary power. This is called residuary power. This is given to the union government. So this division of power, which we are seeing in our constitution, it is tilted towards the union government. And one more thing, when we will discuss, we will see that all the financial powers are given to the center. In financial matter, the states are not given independence. They are not at all financially independent or autonomous. They are totally dependent on the grants and assistance of the center. So, in this way, this type of federalism was adopted through our constitution, and you can see it here, federalism with a strong central government. We have adopted federalism. We have adopted two different levels of government in the constitution. We have um, divided the powers between these two levels of government, but we have also made provisions for strong central government. And there is reason, there are reasons behind adopting this strong central government. The first reason, I have discussed this also, that the situation which was prevailing at the time of constitution making was very disturbing because of partition. The country was divided into two parts, and not only partition was there, this partition caused displacement of population, and this displacement of population caused a lot of violence and killings. So this this created an atmosphere of fear. There was fear generated in the mind of our political leaders, in the mind of our national leaders, that India may disintegrate because at that time only Pakistan was made out of India. But at the time of independence in India, where we were having 563 princely states, which needed to be integrated with the country. So there was a fear that India may disintegrate into several smaller parts, and it cannot be unified. It cannot be integrated as a single unit. So this was the main reason why our constitution makers adopted federalism with a strong central government, so that the unity and the integrity of the country could be maintained. You can see it here. This is the view of T.T. Krishnamachari, who was a member of Constituent Assembly. He is saying, "Let me tell my honorable friends in the House that the drift in all constitution has been towards the center because of circumstances that have now come into being, that the states have become federal or unitary welfare states from being police states, and the ultimate responsibility as for the economic well-being of the country has become the paramount responsibility of the center." So T.T. Krishnamachari is pointing towards another point, and that is nowadays what we see, that the nature of the states have changed. Earlier, the states used to be police states. Police states means the state which is concerned only with the maintenance of law and order. Other than maintaining law and order, and other than defending the boundary of the country, the state has nothing to do. It was the earlier concept of states that was called police state. But now the states has converted from police state to welfare state. Welfare state means it is the responsibility of the state to provide all the basic facilities, all the basic needs of life to all the people of the country. So what we see, that the responsibility of the state has increased, and this increased responsibility of removing poverty, of removing the gap between the rich and the poor, all these responsibilities can be fulfilled only by having a strong center. And that was also that was really one of the most important cause for adopting a strong center, because at the time of independence India was economically very backward. Neither agriculture nor industry, nothing was was in a good condition, and during colonial rule we were exploited economically, and after getting independence, this was the prime responsibility of our national leaders to bring economic development, to bring social change, because our society has also many problems. Society was also suffering from many evils. So all these problems like poverty, illiteracy, inequalities of wealth, all these problems cannot be solved successfully if the center is not strong, because in order to remove all these problems, what is required? There is requirement of planning, and there is requirement of coordination. If the states were given more powers, or we have adopted a federalism in which the center and the states are equally powerful, then in that condition there will be lack of coordination, there will be lack of planning. So in order to bring this social and economic change, our constitution makers adopted this federalism with a strong center. So, what is the reason why our constitution makers adopted this type of federalism? Because, first of all, there was fear of disintegration of the country, because of partition, and because of displacement of people and killings and violence created an atmosphere of fear, and presence of so many large number of princely states was also a very important reason for adopting this uh, federalism with strong center. And the second reason is to bring social and economic change. So we can see, now we will see the important provisions that created a strong central government in India. What are the important provisions of our constitution through which a strong central government was created? So this is very important for you. You can see it here. The first point we can see that the very existence of a state, including its territorial integrity, is in the hands of parliament. What we see that the parliament has the power. The parliament has the power to create a new state. Okay, and this new state can be created by separation of territory from any state, or by uniting two or more states. Okay, so these are the ways through which a new state can be created: by breaking an existing state, or giving a status of a, and it can also be done that full-fledged state status can be given to a union territory. So we see in these are the process. What is the procedure for suppose any state? We have seen that names of various states have changed. Like Odisha has become Odisha, then Mumbai has become Bombay has become Mumbai. Uh, uh, so in this way, we see there is a change of name. So if the process is that the state assembly has power, it can pass a resolution for this type of change in name. Okay, and this resolution which is passed by the state assembly for such change, uh, it will be sent to central government, and then central government creates a bill, and then this bill is sent back to the state legislature, and the state legislature is supposed to express its views in a stipulated time. And if suppose that time is passed, then what happens? That the bill is introduced in the parliament, and the parliament can pass the bill. So we see that the state can give a proposal for change. There are other instances also, there are other process also in which the state is not giving any kind of proposal for change. It can be started by the central government also. The central government, for that purpose, what the central government will do, the central government can simply get a bill passed in the parliament. But for this, our constitution says that the state which is affected, it must be given an opportunity to express their views. So, what is the process? The process is that the central government will create a bill. Okay, and then this bill can be introduced in parliament only by the recommendation of the president. The president has to recommend the bill. Okay, and but the president can recommend the bill in the parliament. Before that recommendation, president will have to send this bill to the concerned state legislature. Okay, and the president then give it a fixed time to express its views on that matter, and the state's views has actually there is no impact of the view of the state, because if the state says yes or no, once the time given to it has passed, the president may recommend the bill to be introduced in any house of parliament. And after introducing the bill is passed. If the bill is passed by both the houses of the parliament, then the changes will occur. So we can see that in our constitution, the existence of a state is totally dependent on the central, totally dependent on the parliament. Their views are not important. So this is very important for you. The parliament is empowered to form a new state by separation of territory from any state, or by uniting two or more states. All these are important. It can also alter the boundary of any state or even its name. So this is the way, this is one of the provisions through which the center has been made more powerful. Now the second provision is, we have discussed this first provision. Now the second provision. The constitution has certain very powerful emergency provisions which can turn our federal polity into a highly centralized system once emergency is declared. When we were discussing executive, under the executive, we have discussed the emergency powers of the president. Our president is having some emergency powers, that is a national emergency, the second one is state emergency, and the third one is financial emergency. So during this emergency period, what happens that our federal structure of the country changes totally to central unitary structure. Federal structure converts to unitary structure. All the powers become centralized. Whatever division of power is done by the constitution, whatever decentralization of power is done by the constitution becomes suspended, and parliament assumes the power to make laws on subjects within the jurisdiction of the states. The parliament has the power, the parliament has the authority to make laws on the subjects which are listed in the subject list, state list. So this is one of the second provision through which our constitution makers have made arrangements for making the center more powerful. Now we can see that not only during emergency situations occur very rarely, isn't it? So that may be the need of the hour. In the time of emergency, in the time of exigency, what we need protection, and in order to protect the people of the country, there may be need to make the center more powerful. But what we see that even during the normal circumstances, the center has been given more power. And how it is, you can see that the central government has very effective financial powers and responsibilities. All the finances, all the financial powers are given in the hands of central government. Items generating revenue are under the control of the central government. So sources of revenue are in the hands of central government. The central government has many revenue sources and the states are mostly dependent on the grants and financial assistance from the states. The states are very meager revenue sources. They are not having any revenue sources, but they have so many responsibilities to be fulfilled. They have so many functions to do. How will they deliver their function? How will they do their function? How will they fulfill their responsibility if they are not having the revenue source? So in order to fulfill their responsibilities, they depend on the grants which is given by the central government. They depend on the financial assistance which is given by the central government. So this is the most important tool through which the center has been made powerful, because the main power lies with the revenue sources. You have given so many responsibilities to the state government, but you have not given the required revenue sources to the central state government. Then this is the method to make the state government weaker. Okay, now we see the second point within this point, that we have adopted planning. We have adopted planned economy, because I have told you earlier also that when India became independent, we have so many economic challenges we have in front of us: poverty, inequality of wealth. So all these problems need to be solved, and in order to uh, accelerate the economic growth of the country, our political leaders, our national leaders adopted planned economy. And this planned economy is not possible without centralization of economic decision making. Planning can be possible only when there is centralized decision making power, especially economic decision making power. For the purpose of planned economy, we have we have made planning commission, and this planning commission appointed by the union government is the coordinating machinery that controls and supervises the resources management of the states. So this planning commission is a commission which is appointed by the union government, and through this planning commission, what is done, it is a type of machinery to coordinate the all the economic activities of the states in order to achieve economic growth only. But this planning commission controls and supervises the resources management of the states. So this planning commission is working under the union government, and what is its work? It is controlling and supervising the resource management of the state. So it is one of the most important tools, one of the most important tools in the hand of the central government to control the state governments. And one more thing, we can see that the union government is totally free to use, totally free to give grant and loans to states. It is not required that the central government should follow any rule in order to give grant and loan to states. It can take decision on its own. It doesn't need to follow any rule. So what happens in actual practice? What happens? This grant and loans are given, mostly they are given to those states which are ruled by the same party which is ruling at the center. And if the state is ruled by an opposition party, then it it is not given that much of financial assistance and grants. So this type of discrimination is done by the central government between the states on the basis of the ruling party. If the state is ruled by the same party which is ruling at the center, then it will be very easy for that state to get loans and grants from the central government. But if the state government is ruled by an opposition party, then it becomes very tough for the for that particular state government to get grants and loans from the state government. So this is also, we can say, that one of the most important tool tools in the hand of central government to control the state government, and this makes our center more powerful. Now, the another point is there, and this is the role of the governor. Governor is the uh, executive head of the state government, and the governor plays the same role as the role played by the president in the executive. But what we see that there is one major difference between the president and the role played by the president and the role played by the governor. The post of president is completely apolitical. It means that the president has no political affiliation. He is not related to any political party, and he is not supposed to play any political role. He is there only to play the constitutional role as the executive head of the central government. But what we see in the case of governor, that the post of governor is not apolitical, it is political, because the governor is appointed by the president, and the president appoints the governor uh, according to the advice of the cabinet and the prime minister. And what we have experienced in our country, that the works as the agent of central government. So in this way, what happens that the governor tries to enhance the interest of the central government in the governance of the state. When there is same party is ruling at the center and in the state, then what happens that there is no problem is not arise, because the party is same. But when we experience that there is a opposition party in a state government, then what happens that the governor starts playing the role of the agent of the center, and in this way many times it obstruct the working of the state government. It happens. Okay, so in this regard there are two situations. The first situation is the proclamation of state emergency. Under article 356, any state can be put under president rule if the governor of that state sends a report to the central government that the state government is not functioning according to the provisions of the constitution, then in that case the central government can dismiss the state government and impose a state emergency in that state. And in this situation what happens that all the executive and legislature powers all the executive and legislative powers of that state transfers to the central government. In besides this emergency situation, there is in normal circumstances also the governor has some powers. When a bill is passed from the state legislature and it reaches for the consent of the governor can sign the bill, and in this way the bill will become an act. But the governor has one other option also. What the governor can do, that it can reserve a bill which is passed by the state legislature for the assent of the president. It can reserve a bill, okay, which is passed by the state legislature for the assent of the president. And in this way what happens, this is not the bill is not being reserved for the assent of the president. Actually it is a way through which the central government gets an opportunity to delay the state legislation, and it can also examine such bills and veto. They can veto also. The central government, the president, can veto the bill, and in this situation the president is not going to use his discretionary power. He will have to act according to the aid and advice of the council of ministers. So this is the way through the governor the central government pose control. The central government impose a control over the governance of the state. Okay, so in this way we can see that the governor is also one of the tools in the hands of the central government to enhance its powers. So for today this is all, and the rest of the content will be discussed, yes, tomorrow.